when Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, rose to fame with groundbreaking inventions. Few could have predicted that he would create a turning point in religious history. Recently, Musk caused a stir by stating, "This is the original Bible that they don't want you to see." This statement was not just a surprise, but a massive question that hit us all. Is the Bible we know today truly complete and original as it has been passed down through the centuries? Or is there another version, a hidden truth, that only those daring enough to search can uncover? This journey began thousands of years ago, with fierce religious debates and books that were left out. Now, Elon Musk, as a famous figure, has entered that debate, revealing a discovery that makes the world reconsider what we know about the Bible. But is this just a new exploration? Or is it a revelation that could change how we understand religion? The Forgotten Writings of Christianity, an unexplored secret when Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla and SpaceX, unexpectedly brought up religion during an interview with Jordan Peterson. Many were taken aback. However, for someone like Musk, this may not be so surprising. Despite his fame for groundbreaking inventions and technologies, Musk has shown a deep curiosity about things unknown in religious history, especially Christianity. And now, while many are still astonished by his shift in perspective, Musk continues to offer shocking insights into ancient religious writings that most people have long forgotten. Just recently, a series of videos by Jordan Peterson titled The Gospels has captured the attention of the online community, offering new perspectives on religious texts that few are familiar with. The research Peterson presents not only challenges what we know about the Bible but also leads viewers to an important connection with the formation and development of Christianity. When discussing the original writings of the New Testament, one cannot ignore St. Paul, who is responsible for writing nearly half of the New Testament books. His epistles, written during the 1st century, spread the message of Christ to followers. However, in 65 AD, about 30 years after Christ's death, St. Paul was executed by Emperor Nero. But what is notable is that, just before his death, Paul's letters began to emerge and were widely used by many Christian communities. Still, not everything written was considered authentic in the eyes of the faithful at the time. One of the biggest issues was determining which books truly reflected the teachings of Christ. While the Gospels were circulated within the Christian community, not everyone accepted them as sacred. We must go back to the late 1st century, when the original writings of the New Testament were incomplete and still being discussed and recognized by the early Church Fathers. One of the significant advances came from Clement of Rome, who was taught directly by the disciples of St. Peter. In 95 AD, he had 8 books from the New Testament, which he considered sacred. Following him was Polycarp, a disciple of St. John, who in 108 AD recognized 15 books. However, it wasn't until a decade later that these books were officially recognized by renowned church fathers like Irenaeus and Hippolytus. They confirmed 21 and 22 books respectively, gradually forming a collection of scriptures that became widely known today. However, during this process, not all writings were accepted. Books such as the Epistle of Barnabas, the Gospel of Thomas, and the Book of Enoch were excluded from the official Bible due to their lack of authenticity and significant differences in religious viewpoints. These writings, although valued by many, were not accepted within the Christian community at the time. On a reflective afternoon, Elon Musk shared his perspective on the long-standing religious conflicts throughout history. He pointed out that in the early days of Christianity, it was difficult to determine which book truly contained the truth and which one was merely a product of forgery. This created an ambiguity where people could not clearly distinguish between texts that were trustworthy and those that were the work of individuals seeking to alter Christ's message. To address this issue, a visionary emerged, Eusebius, a prominent historian and bishop of Caesarea. He was not only the one to record the history of Christianity, but also the first to attempt to systematize the sacred books. In his work, Eusebius categorized the sacred writings into three clear groups: canonical, disputed, and forgeries. The books deemed canonical were those that the Church Fathers, who had witnessed and met with the apostles, confirmed as authentic. However, the disputed group of books sparked ongoing debates. Some books were approved by a small number of Church Fathers but did not receive widespread consensus. A notable example of this is the Book of Revelation and the Third Epistle of John. These books could not be definitively verified as authentic, creating ambiguity among the faithful. And, of course, among them were the books categorized as forgeries, writings that the early Church Fathers criticized for failing to prove their authenticity. This marked the beginning of a journey to clarify the truth within Christianity, a journey that Eusebius meticulously described in his work, Ecclesiastical History. Sharing with the public, Elon Musk stated that in recent weeks, he had immersed himself in this book and deeply felt its importance in shedding light on many historical questions. Eusebius' work helped alleviate the confusion between genuine and false books, opening a clear path for those who sought to understand the origins of the Bible. Another figure that cannot be overlooked is Saint Jerome, who made a tremendous contribution by translating the scriptures into the common language of Rome. Jerome's work laid a solid foundation for the Bible we know today. The books he selected were not only trusted by the faithful, but also became the standard for later translations. However, the path to the recognition of the Bible was not easy. The early years of Christianity passed in a harsh context under the rule of the Roman Empire. The first persecution, during the reign of Emperor Nero, was one of the darkest times. Nero, blaming Christianity for every disaster the empire suffered, allowed bloody boycotts. One of the most tragic events was the Great Fire of Rome, when the flames burned for almost a week, destroying the city and bringing suffering to thousands of families. Many sacred books were discovered and burned. Christianity was falsely accused, and the believers were persecuted, tortured, and killed in brutal ways. The Roman Empire not only destroyed people but also destroyed sacred cultural heritage. Important scriptures in the history of Christianity might have been lost in these attacks, leaving a large gap in the building and understanding of the faith of the followers. However, a major turning point came in 306 AD when Flavius Constantius, one of the prominent emperors of Rome, died mysteriously. His son, Constantine, was declared his successor, but he only ruled a small part of the empire. At this time, Constantine had a great ambition. He not only wanted to dominate a part of Rome but also wanted to be the supreme emperor. This led to a fierce battle between him and Maxentius, one of his strongest opponents. In 312 AD, Constantine faced Maxentius in the decisive battle at the Milvian Bridge. This battle was not only a struggle for power but also determined the fate of Christianity. Constantine won, defeating Maxentius and becoming the sole ruler of Rome. After this victory, Constantine not only laid the foundation for a mighty empire, but also paved the way for Christianity to become the official religion of the Roman Empire. This was a historic milestone, as Christianity officially emerged from the shadows and began to thrive worldwide. On the night before the crucial battle, Constantine dreamed of a miraculous phenomenon. When darkness covered the sky, he looked up and saw a glowing cross, like an invisible sign from heaven. At that moment, a powerful voice echoed, "By this sign, you will conquer." These words were like a certain affirmation, filling him with faith and hope. Constantine realized that this was a sign from God, and he was sure that the upcoming victory would be guided by God's hand. Without hesitation, Constantine ordered his army to paint the cross on their shields. This symbol was not only a sign of faith but also a new hope. Each shield bearing the cross became a strong spiritual weapon. The soldiers fought with a victorious spirit, their minds empowered by a heavenly strength. At dawn, when the light of the sun began to rise, the battle between the two armies began. And despite facing great difficulties, Constantine's army never faltered. The battle was long, tense, and fierce. But Constantine did not give up. He stood firm on the battlefield, fighting as though every decision was directed by a higher power. The battle ended on October 28th, with Constantine's army pushing back Maxentius' forces, who were eventually drowned by their own fear as they fled and drowned in the Tiber River. Constantine stood on the bank, looking at the flowing waters, understanding that he did not win just because of the strength of his army but also because of the sanctity of faith that guided him. After the victory, Constantine believed that God had placed his protective hand upon him and decided to embrace Christianity. The following year, he officially issued the Edict of Milan, legalizing Christianity and ushering in a new era for its followers. Christians, who had once lived in fear due to persecution, were now free to live according to their faith. For this reason, Constantine is seen as a savior, who made history in the journey of protecting the faith. However, amid these great achievements, Constantine began to feel an unease, an ongoing division within the Christian community. The conflicting theories and doctrines made it difficult for him to make decisions. In search of a solution to these disagreements, Constantine convened a special meeting on June 19, 325 CE, attended by bishops, scholars, and influential leaders of Christianity. This meeting, held in Nicaea, became an unforgettable event in the history of Christianity. Here, they debated, discussed, and eventually reached a common conclusion: the Nicene Creed, which clearly defined the core beliefs of Christianity, while resolving ambiguities in the doctrines. At that time, all 27 books of the New Testament had been recognized and became the foundation of the Bible. However, by the end of the 4th century, a group of people living apart from the world embarked on an important mission to protect these sacred scriptures. They were devoted monks, who spent their entire lives hand-copying the Bible in isolated rooms known as scriptoria. Without printing presses, they had to use quills and ink to create complete copies of the Bible, in a harsh yet reverent working environment. Each book was not just a copy but also a work of art, decorated with beautiful illustrations, bearing witness to the dedication of the monks. These books were passed down and became an essential spiritual heritage in protecting the faith. One of the most influential figures in the Christian community was Peter Lombard, a renowned theologian, with his influential book, Sentences. In it, he explained the teachings of the Christian faith in simple, understandable terms. However, despite the value this book brought to the scholarly community, few knew that much of the ideas in his book were actually derived from texts that had previously been considered forgeries. What is strange is that, despite the fact that Peter Lombard's works contained many elements from previously discarded texts, the Christian community increasingly accepted these works and incorporated them into their doctrinal process. This acceptance led to the creation of Bible copies that not only included the canonical books but also those referred to as deuterocanonical or apocryphal, and all of these books were revered as sacred parts of the Bible. In a world where the Bible was accessible to only a few, at that time, very few people could read or understand the sacred texts. Most clergy, with the support of long-standing traditions, profited from the faith of the people, creating a religious system where salvation could be bought and exchanged for money. However, in this society, one man rose up in resistance and challenged the authority of the Church. And that man was Martin Luther. Martin Luther, a German monk, clearly saw the injustices and deceit in the way the Church was running religion. He could no longer bear to witness the distortion of doctrine and the religion being turned into a tool for profit. Luther believed that salvation could not be bought with large sums of money from the poor, and true faith must be lived through God's grace, not through soothing sermons aimed at the personal gain of the leaders. His distress grew as he saw the Church promoting unofficial additions to the sacred texts as essential parts of the faith. For Luther, The 66 books were sufficient, complete, and all that was necessary to lead people to salvation. And so, on October 31st, 1517, he decided to publicly share his thoughts. He wrote the 95 Theses opposing the sale of indulgences and nailed them to the door of the castle church in Wittenberg. Luther intended to send a strong message to the scholars. But little did he know that this act would spark a religious revolution. Luther's words spread rapidly, and within a short time, protests and fierce struggles against the church broke out everywhere. People felt deceived, and their faith in the doctrine they were forced to follow suddenly became questionable. These small changes ignited the flame of the Protestant Reformation, a profound shift not only within the church, but also in society as a whole. Due to the growing opposition, Luther was declared an enemy by the church and became a target of persecution. Those who supported Roman doctrine sought to end his career. But Luther was fortunate to escape the pursuit and find refuge at Wartburg Castle. There, he not only found peace for himself but also realized something important. Those opposing the church also did not fully understand what they were fighting against. They had never had access to the sacred texts because they could not read them. Recognizing that change must come from the foundation, Luther decided to translate the Bible for the people, so that anyone could access the teachings of God. He did not just translate the Bible in a conventional way but also aimed to create a translation that was easy to understand and accessible to common people, whether educated or not. He wanted every individual to be able to read and understand for themselves, without needing any intermediary. With a strong belief in the importance of allowing people to access the Word of God, Luther completed the translation of the New Testament in 1522, and this became one of the most significant events in religious history. Church leaders, of course, could not accept this. They feared that allowing ordinary people to read and interpret the Bible for themselves would lead to uncontrollable chaos. However, Luther firmly defended his view, believing that each individual's faith could not be distorted by policies and traditions but must freely develop from within their own soul. Not long after, in 1534, Luther completed the translation of the entire Bible. The additional books that the Church considered unofficial were kept by Luther, but he made it clear that they were not the foundation of faith, only supplementary materials. However, the important thing was that he did something no one had dared to do before. He brought the Bible closer to the people, allowing them to find their own path to salvation. Through his courageous and resilient actions, Martin Luther forever changed the way religion was accessed. He ushered in a new era where every individual had the freedom to access the Word of God and was no longer dependent on the supervision or control of any institution. When Martin Luther began to spread his works, an unstoppable revolution spread across Europe. At that time, reading and writing were privileges of the few, and most people had to rely on others to explain the sacred texts. But Luther, with his far-reaching vision, was determined to change this. He believed that everyone, regardless of social status or education, had the right to access the Bible and understand the words of God. Thanks to his efforts, millions of people began to learn to read, no longer bound by the interpretations of the clergy. Europe gradually witnessed the strong development of education and literacy, and this caused the leaders of the Roman Church to take notice. They realized that their power was being threatened, and Luther had to pay the price for the changes he had brought about. However, Martin Luther was not alone in this battle. People like Frederick the Wise and the Elector of Saxony, who clearly recognized the value of Luther's works, stood up to protect him. The Elector even provided Luther with a safe house where he could continue his work without fear, always having the resources and support to complete his mission. But not everyone was as fortunate as Luther. Those who dared to follow his teachings paid a heavy price. John Doctor, one of Luther's followers, was excommunicated from the community and forced into exile. Many of Luther's other disciples did not escape a tragic fate, as they were publicly tried and subjected to brutal punishments. Among them, Michael Sattler, an Anabaptist leader who boldly criticized the sacred texts, was brutally beaten and executed in front of a crowd. And then, there was a death that many could not forget: William Tyndale, who courageously translated the Bible into English, was burned alive in public for an act that the Church deemed a rebellion against divine authority. However, Tyndale's death could not extinguish the passion for new knowledge. Soon after, in 1536, a new figure emerged with challenging views: John Calvin. He not only opposed the additional books that the Roman Church considered sacred but also affirmed that only 66 books in the Bible were worthy of respect and regarded as perfect. To support his argument, Calvin published the book, Institutes of the Christian Religion, launching a new movement with a broad influence in the Protestant community, known as Calvinism. The followers of Calvin, known as Calvinists, asserted that the Bible was not just a collection of historical records, but the true words transmitted from God through humans. Calvin completely rejected the idea that the Bible could be incomplete or insufficient. He believed that only the 66 books in the Bible were sacred and unchangeable. His strong opposition to the deuterocanonical books sparked an intense debate within religious circles. Calvin's influence and his views continued to be strengthened throughout the centuries. In 1826, the British and Foreign Bible Society and international organizations decided never to print any additional books in the Bible, a decision that affirmed the lasting impact of the reforms Calvin had initiated. Figures like Martin Luther, William Tyndale, and John Calvin became symbols of the struggle not only for religious freedom but also for the right to self-determine one's beliefs. Overcoming all powers and threats, they etched a message into history: the right to read, understand, and freely express faith is a right for everyone, and no one can take it away. In the late 40s, in a barren land near Cumin, south of Jericho, a young shepherd was gazing at the dusty sand hills. The entire flock of goats had disappeared, leaving only the silence of the evening. He decided to continue searching beyond the familiar area. As nightfall approached, he accidentally spotted a small cave hidden among the rocks near the Dead Sea. With irresistible curiosity, he approached. To ensure there were no wild animals inside, he threw a stone into the cave. The sound that came back was not the growl of a beast, but a strange noise, like the breaking of something fragile. A sense of unease ran down his spine, but curiosity drove him to enter the cave to investigate. In the dim light of the cave, he discovered broken clay jars scattered around. But what was odd was that inside them, he found scrolls that were very ancient. Although they were thick with dust and showed signs of decay, the writing on them was still clear. The young man decided to report his discovery, and soon after, an excavation was organized. Archaeologists discovered many more scrolls in other caves along the coastline. When they were opened, they realized these scrolls were over 2,000 years old and contained early copies of the Hebrew Bible. The astonishing thing was that, despite being much older than modern biblical texts, these scrolls had a very high degree of correspondence with current translations, reaching over 95%. The errors were limited to spelling mistakes that did not affect the main message of the texts. The scrolls were written in languages such as Hebrew, Aramaic, and Greek, and they also contained hymns, religious rules, and additional commentaries. Moreover, another surprising discovery was that many books, which today are not considered part of the Bible, appeared in these scrolls, such as the Book of Sirach and the Letter of Jeremiah. This not only changed the way we view religious history, but also led many to question the books that might have been excluded from the Bible but were once considered sacred. A major question that still remains unanswered is, were these books part of the original Bible? Today, with the Bible available in many languages and different translations, Christian followers are still divided over which books truly belong to the sacred original text. Despite new discoveries and increasingly accurate modern translations, The debate over what belongs in the original Bible remains a challenging topic. Each of these debates brings us back to the fundamental questions about the sanctity and authenticity of the books we still regard as the foundation of our faith. Many experts researching Christianity agree that the books excluded from the New Testament have issues with authenticity and origin. For example, the Gospel of Thomas contains many clear contradictions with the canonical Gospels. And what scholars question is that this book was written hundreds of years after St. Thomas's death. Similarly, the Gospel of Mary, though accepted by some small communities, has never received wide recognition in the early Church. Not only the New Testament but also some books in the Old Testament have faced criticism. The Book of Tobit, for example, suggests that helping the poor can save the soul from death, a viewpoint that contradicts many teachings in the New Testament. The second book of Maccabees encourages praying for the dead, which was never acknowledged by the authors in the New Testament. However, the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls has opened a new chapter in this debate. The ancient scrolls found in this area show that ancient Jewish communities regarded these books as an important part of their religious heritage. Elon Musk, in some recent statements, has expressed his belief that these excluded books are indeed valuable and should not be dismissed. He argues that the ancient Jews protected these books because they considered them sacred, and we should not deny that. However, there is still a significant divide between scholars and Christian followers. Some believe that these books are merely unofficial editions and hold no sacred value. Others believe that these books may have been unfairly excluded and deserve to be restored in the original Bible. So, what do you think? Do you believe these books truly deserve recognition? Or perhaps Elon Musk is simply participating in a debate without fully understanding the importance of the issue? We look forward to hearing your thoughts in the comments section below this video. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel to not miss out on the next exciting videos.